and welcome to today's Oil for the Journey oil change. I am your journey reader, Denise Denton Mitty, and I will be discussing with you today books of Acts chapters 1 through 3. Now, just so that you know, the Oil for the Journey podcast follows the Ignite the Truth Bridges for Peace Bible reading plan. Now, Acts chapters 1 through 3. Acts is a very powerful book, often underestimated in religious tradition or early Christian tradition. By that I mean denominational tradition, because of the miracles and signs and wonders that are so fantastic and overwhelming, if you will, for people to believe conceptually and understand is real. They often put the book of Acts in a sort of fantastical, fantasy type category. But unbeknownst to them, of course, it was very real. And as we'll see in context, the people during the first century actually did underestimate the works of Jesus and the works of Jesus through the Holy Spirit in his disciples during that time. One thing to note is that the book of Acts is written by Luke, who is the author of the Gospel of Luke, one of the synoptic gospels, the three synoptic gospels that really details the life of Jesus. And then part 2 to his writing would be the book of Acts. So that follows after Jesus' resurrection, the work of the Holy Spirit in his disciples. Now, chapter 1 basically is an overview and of how the church first starts, how they gather together and in anticipation of the Holy Spirit, how they come together to declare the gospel, the good news, the message of Jesus Christ, his death, burial, and resurrection. And a couple of things I want to highlight in chapter 1. One, that Peter basically shows, or Luke shows in writing, and as Peter addresses, the presence of women, Mary, the mother of Jesus, and other followers or disciples. Specifically, 120 were present at the time. And in those times, when they really count the hands of men, and then they say woman as additional people, if you will, but only counting the men. So it's probably more likely 120 men, and then when you add the women, twice as many. And there were other Jews there as well. They were all waiting together for the Holy Spirit to be imparted to them, to be sent to them as Jesus promised. And Peter, in addressing the crowd, reflects back to various Old Testament scriptures, the book of Joel, Isaiah, and in doing so, he brings credibility to Jesus being the Messiah, along with the miracles and signs and wonders that Jesus and they performed. The scriptures that also verified, notably the patriarch David, that verify the coming of the Messiah and the work that he would do in his earthly ministry, brings credibility and is a witness and some sort of argumentation, if you will, to those who may not believe ordinarily that Jesus was the Messiah during that time. And as we could foreshadow to today, it's still very relevant. But what I wanted to point out is just the abundance of people that were there at the time that were also followers other than the 12. So no one could say that the 12 disciples, even the one that was replacing Judas of Iscariot, Matthias, no one could say that they didn't see or witness what took place when Jesus was here on earth in his earthly ministry, because there were over 120 people to give witnesses. And Peter also said that there were 400 people, and he was there for 40 days and 40 nights also speaking to people, Jesus, the resurrected Jesus. So there were an abundance of people who witnessed Christ, the Messiah, walking on earth after he had been dead and buried. And Peter also gives an argument to the Jews saying, hey, y'all were evil, and some of you ignorant in your evil and thinking that you could kill the Messiah. But no, you could not do that. And even Judas, who was the betrayer, who led the Roman soldiers to arrest Jesus, to bring him before the Jewish Sanhedrin for him to eventually be put to death, even those, that had been pre-planned by God the Father. So you couldn't kill Jesus, even though you tried and thought that you were doing so. So Peter, I think, just gave a wonderful argument and an example and witness for the authenticity of who Jesus was at that time and who Jesus is to this day. So that's like Acts chapter 1. So go into Acts chapters 2 and 3. Again, we see the two, they gathered together waiting for the Holy Spirit. This was many people, and the sign given to them that the Holy Spirit was sent and received was that they started speaking in other languages. And, you know, they're in Jerusalem. Now, Jerusalem is populated with many foreigners because it was a city of trade. So it's kind of like New York City. Everybody is there from different backgrounds, different people groups, and different languages. And they were trading there. It was a city of trade. It was a city of worship. It was a major city in ancient times. And so as they were gathered there waiting to receive the Holy Spirit and hearing all these other language, they heard the gospel in their own language. And that was miraculous. And again, there were the naysayers, oh, y'all, some of y'all drunk. But they were speaking in other men's tongues, and they were basically Galileans. And we're like, wait a minute, how do these people know our language and we're hearing our language being spoken? So it's like me looking on someone, I'm Jamaican, looking on someone, say from Nigeria, speaking Igbo, and you know, I'm speaking to them, but they're only hearing Igbo. So it was just a miraculous time, and there were hundreds of witnesses gathered during that time. And as a result as well, Peter gives a speech. He's like, look, we're not drunk. This is the Holy Spirit. This was even foretold in the scriptures. And then he quotes again Old Testament scriptures, as Peter does throughout this book, as Luke does as well throughout the book of Acts, just giving evidence and credibility to who Jesus is as the Messiah, the Son of the living God, that he is not dead and he's alive. This is the first real instance of the gospel being presented to an array of cultural different backgrounds and people groups, so that people could understand that Jesus is for everyone. And a matter of fact, they I believe it was chapter 3, where they went in an area of the temple with the title of Solomon's, well, it was the outer court, but Solomon's court. That was the area of the temple designed for Gentiles, for those who were not of Jewish heritage. So there was a crowd there so vast and so large that there were a number of people who could hear this gospel message from Peter, as written and recorded by Luke, that were from various backgrounds all across the world. And Luke also notates many of the regions: Mesopotamia, Egypt, Asia, Arab, all those people groups that were all around him at the time as he gave his speech and his preaching. So, this is just to underscore that the gospel is alive and well. It was alive and well after Christ's ascension, and there are many proofs for that. And it is alive and well now. Jesus is real. And I just want to end our gospel, our oil for the journey oil change, with knowing that the gospel is relevant to all nations, all backgrounds, all children, women, and men all around the world. May God bless you, and thank you.